They say the American dream is dead. I say it was never alive to begin with. At least not for people like me, 24, broke, and too proud to go back to Naples with my tail between my legs. I came to the US with a student visa, 3 duffel bags, and an exaggerated sense of optimism. Like an idiot. Now I'm an unpaid intern, stipend-based apprentice, at one of the largest marketing firms in Manhattan, which is just a fancy way of saying I run on coffee, fear, and the hope that I won't be deported before lunch. My name is Matteo Moretti, and if you think my life sounds like a low-budget indie film where nothing happens for 2 hours except existential dread and the occasional espresso shot, you're not far off. My boss is Blake Vanderhorn. Yes, that's his real name. Sounds like a Bond villain with a yacht fetish. He's the kind of man who wears $3,000 suits to breathe and only smiles when someone beneath him is suffering. Picture Patrick Bateman if he gentrified his sociopathy with a podcast and a gluten-free lifestyle. He's 42, single, and very aware of his power, and by power, I mean the HR-proof way he eyes every intern like they're on a menu. Lucky me, I was today's special. It started innocuously enough. Matteo, can you grab me a cortado from La Mer downstairs? He'd bark without looking up from his triple-screen setup. That's what we all did. Fetch, flatter, file. But one Thursday morning, things tilted. He asked me into his glass-walled office, which always smells faintly of cologne and capitalism. Matteo, he said, folding his hands with theatrical precision. You're European. You get pleasure. I blinked. Excuse me? He smiled, slowly, predatorily. I have a proposition. Think of it as a way to accelerate your future here. I don't know what gave it away. Maybe the way he glanced at my chest like he was assessing a cut of meat, but my blood ran cold. I'd like to see you outside of work, he continued. Dinner? Drinks? I'm generous, Matteo. Very generous. You won't have to worry about money ever again. Ah, there it was. There. The American dream, after all. Just with a price tag I hadn't expected. I'm not a prostitute, I muttered, my voice cracking like a teenager's. No, he said. You're an intern, and interns are replaceable, especially when they're in the country on a temporary visa. I wish I could say I stormed out dramatically, that I threw my coffee in his face or ripped off my ID badge like a hero in a bad Netflix drama, but I didn't. I just stood there, frozen, silent, dying inside one awkward breath at a time. Later that day, I sat in the supply closet pretending to organize toner while having an existential breakdown. It smelled like dust and crushed dreams. Fitting. Really. Blake had made it clear, play along or risk losing not just the job, but my legal status. Without this internship, I'd lose my visa. Without my visa, I'd be on the next flight back to Naples, where my father still calls Facebook Facebuke, and thinks a QR code is a demonic symbol. And don't get me wrong, I love my country, but Italy doesn't have jobs, or hope, or iced coffee that isn't an affront to God. I tried to pretend it didn't happen, that maybe he was just messing with me. But the next day, he left a pair of designer sunglasses on my desk with a sticky note that said, "You'd look hot in these." Dinner Saturday? I stared at the note so long it blurred. Then I flushed it down the toilet and tossed the sunglasses in the trash, which, in hindsight, was a dumb move. I could have sold them. It got worse. Blake started calling me into his office more often, alone, no witnesses, always with the door closed. "I need your help with a special project," he'd say, then proceed to touch my shoulder for no goddamn reason. Sometimes he'd talk about his exes, men and women, as if I were one of them, just waiting to be added to his collector's shelf. "You have a very European energy," he said once. Soft, obedient. I could feel the bile rise in my throat. "I'm not soft," I said finally. He smirked. "No? Then prove it. Come to my place this weekend. Help me decompress." I left his office shaking, not from fear, but from the overwhelming desire to shove his Mont Blanc pen up his nose. I started looking for other internships that afternoon. No luck. The semester had started. Every position was full. I emailed my advisor back at NYU, hoping she might have connections. She replied 2 days later with a smiley face and a link to a blog post about resilience. Thanks, Susan. I'll be sure to read that while panicking in a Duane Reade bathroom stall. I considered going to HR, but Blake practically owned them. He was best friends with the VP of People Culture. Yes, that's a real title. And rumor had it they did ayahuasca. Together in Tulum every February, I was alone. And I was pissed. One night, I called my mother. She still doesn't know English, which means she doesn't know how badly I've screwed up. Matteo, sei stanco? She asked. Stai mangiando bene? Yes, Mama. I'm eating fine. I lead, chewing on the edge of a stale granola bar. E il tuo lavoro? Ti pagano? I stared at the ceiling. Yes, I said. They pay me in trauma. She laughed, not understanding a word. It made me cry. The breaking point came the following Monday. Blake had just returned from a weekend in the Hamptons, where he presumably sacrificed interns to the gods of finance. He walked in wearing a navy suit so tight it looked spray-painted, on and sunglasses indoors because, of course. He called me into his office again, closed the door again, and then, with all the charm of a serial killer ordering dessert, he said, I've booked us a suite at the Mercer Hotel next weekend. I expect you to clear your schedule. I didn't speak. He leaned back in his chair and smiled. Say no, and I call ICE. There it was, the gauntlet, the nuclear option. He said it so casually, like he was ordering oat milk. Is that a threat? I whispered. He shrugged. It's a fact. Matteo, I like you, but I don't need you. One call and you'll be back in Italy peeling potatoes before you can say ciao. I walked out of his office and didn't stop until I hit the elevator. Then the street. Then the nearest bar. I had 1 whiskey, then 3. By the time I stumbled home, I had 2 things, a hangover and a plan. Blake Vanderhorn wanted to use me. Fine. But first, I'd use him. There's a specific kind of calm that comes after you've hit rock bottom. It's not peaceful, it's not zen, it's just numb, like floating in a dirty bathtub with the water gone cold. You stop feeling fear or shame or hope. And with that blankness comes space. Beautiful, brutal space for strategy. After Blake dropped the ice bomb, I stopped pretending this was a misunderstanding. This was war. Of course, war needs soldiers. And I had no one. My only allies were a roommate who thought deodorant was optional and a LinkedIn profile with a photo taken at a cousin's wedding. But I had one thing Blake didn't. Nothing to lose. Well, that, and a part-time job at a coffee shop in Brooklyn that paid under the table and had a manager who wore Che Guevara shirts unironically. They let me work weekends, which meant I could buy groceries and prepare for psychological warfare in the middle of latte art competitions. Multitasking. Step 1 of Operation Burn Blake was research. I started with the company handbook. Yes, the one they forced us to read on day 1, which everyone clicked through like a dating app, EULA. I found it buried in my email under mandatory compliance training and scrolled like a man possessed. Bingo. All employees, regardless of status, are protected under the company's non-retaliation policy and sexual harassment code of conduct. Protected, huh? Cute. Still, Blake was the head of strategy. The board loved him. HR feared him. The man could probably sacrifice a goat in the break room and still get invited to the diversity gala, so I needed something solid, something undeniable, something digital. Step 2, gather evidence. I started small, screenshots, texts. That one, email where he said, "Come to the Hamptons, my bed's big enough for 2 Europeans." Charming, right? But what I really needed was audio. Something that captured Blake in all his entitled, sleazy glory. I bought a cheap mic on Amazon and sewed it into the lining of my coat. I tested it on pigeons in the park just to make sure it picked up voices. New York pigeons, by the way, have a lot to say. Then I waited. It didn't take long. Blake summoned me into his office the next Friday. The usual, Smug grin, tinted windows, the scent of designer aftershave and narcissism thick in the air. "I hope you cleared your weekend," he said, adjusting his cufflinks. "I've already booked the car." "Sure," I said, trying not to visibly dry heave. "Good boy," he murmured. "Wear something tight. Click. Got it." He went on about the hotel suite, the champagne, the jacuzzi. I smiled, nodded, asked follow-up questions like I was interviewing him for a podcast titled Creeps and Capitalists, The Fall of Blake Vanderhorn. Then, when I got back to my apartment, I uploaded the recording to 3 cloud accounts and sent copies to my email, a burner Gmail, and just in case, my cousin Luca in Naples, who still thinks Bitcoin is a video game. Step 3. Build a witness. Her name was Naomi, a fellow intern. One of the few people in the office who looked me in the eye and didn't pretend I was part of the furniture. I caught her in the break room one morning, poking at a sad muffin like it had insulted her family. "Hey," I said. "Do you have 5 minutes and absolutely no desire to get involved in something horrifying but also potentially righteous?" She blinked. "Are you trying to sell me a cult?" "Worse, I'm asking for help." She followed me to the fire escape, where I told her everything. Her face went from skeptical to sympathetic to furious in under 3 minutes. "He tried to kiss me once," she said quietly. "Last year. I told him I had a boyfriend. He laughed and said, 'That's not a real barrier unless you're married.'" "Charming. Did you report it?" I asked. "To who? HR? You mean his yoga buddy Claire?" "Point taken." I asked if she'd be willing to help me. Not as bait, not as a martyr, just backup. A second pair of eyes, someone who could verify what I'd been through when the time came. She nodded slowly. "I'll help, but promise me something. Anything. Don't let him win." Now came step 4. Make him think he'd won. I accepted the dinner invitation. "Perfect," he purred over email. "Dress code, depraved. Gross." He picked me up in a black SUV with tinted windows and a driver who looked like he hadn't blinked since the Obama administration. We went to some fusion place in Tribeca, where the menu didn't have prices and the wine came in a bottle shaped like a swan. I pretended to be charmed. I laughed at his jokes. I even touched his wrist lightly when he mentioned Harvard. I deserve an Oscar. Or at least an Emmy. Over dessert, he leaned in. "You're special, Matteo. I could see you running this place one day." "Really?" I asked sweetly. "Oh, yes. With my help, of course." Click. More audio. More receipts. After dinner, he tried to kiss me. I turned my face just enough that it landed on my cheek. He didn't care. He looked drunk on power. I told him I needed the weekend to process my feelings. He agreed, smirking like a man who thought the game was already over. It wasn't. Step 5. Detonate. The next Monday, I sent a carefully curated package to HR, audio, screenshots, witness statement from Naomi, a letter written with the quiet fury of a man who'd been backed into a corner and came out swinging. I CC'd legal. I CC'd the board. Then I waited. The fallout was delicious. At first, nothing happened. HR went into ghost mode. Blake strutted around like he was invincible. But 2 days later, the glass door to his office clicked shut behind a very serious-looking man in a very boring suit. Compliance, probably. Then came the whispers. Then the silence. Then finally, the explosion. Blake didn't come in on Friday or Monday. By Tuesday, his nameplate was gone. An internal memo followed. After a mutual decision, Blake Vanderhorn will be stepping away from his role to pursue other opportunities. We thank him for his service. Translation: we canned his ass, but we're too scared of a lawsuit to say it, but that wasn't enough. I wanted more. I wanted scorched earth, so I leaked it. The audio, the story, the timeline, an anonymous Medium post. What it's like when your boss offers to buy your silence with a hotel room. It went viral. BuzzFeed picked it up. Then Vox. Then a feminist TikToker with 2 million followers did a dramatic reading, with mood lighting and synth music. Suddenly, Blake's name was everywhere. So were his messages, his voice, his sleaze, his downfall. He tried to call me. I didn't answer. He sent me an email. "You don't know who you're messing with." I replied, "Apparently someone with a very short tenure. I heard he moved to Florida to rebrand." He started a podcast called Alpha Mindset. Last I checked, it had 11 subscribers and a 1-star review that said, "This man breathes like a predator." Naomi got a real job offer. So did I. Same company, better title. Actual Pay HR went through a structural rebranding, which is a fancy way of saying they fired everyone complicit and hired people who don't do yoga with sexual predators. And me? I'm still here. Still drinking shitty office coffee. Still attending soul-sucking meetings. But now, when I walk through those doors, I walk like a ghost they can't ignore. Because I'm the intern who destroyed Blake Vanderhorn. And I'm just getting started. Success is a funny thing. You spend years fantasizing about it, how it'll taste, how it'll heal you, how the people who broke you will finally bow. But when it comes, it's not triumphant, not cinematic. It doesn't kick the door in with a choir singing your name. It sneaks in, quiet and awkward, like an unwanted guest at your own funeral. I got promoted, got a badge, got a desk that wasn't next to the printer and didn't smell like burnt toner and hopelessness. Naomi got her own team. People stopped calling me that intern who's not from around here and started calling me by name. But I didn't feel proud. I felt numb. Again. Still. Like I had won a war but lost something, unnameable along the way. Some soft part of me that used to dream, used to forgive, used to believe that work could be honest, that people could be decent. Blake was gone, yes. A footnote in the company's dark archives, a whispered name during HR PowerPoints, but he wasn't. Destroyed, not really, because men like Blake don't go away. They slither. They rebrand. They pivot into motivational speakers and write books about resilience. They cry on podcasts about cancel culture and how a good man's life was ruined by a moment of miscommunication. I watched him crawl back, online like a cockroach after a flood. First, it was LinkedIn posts about growth through adversity. Then an Instagram page, Vanderhorn Vision, where he posted gym selfies captioned with Nietzsche quotes he definitely didn't understand. Finally, a YouTube channel called Blake Speaks, where he wore tight shirts, chewed gum like a hyena, and explained to men how to reclaim their dominance in the modern workplace. I watched one video, just one. In it, he said, "A weak man seeks approval. A strong man takes what he wants." And just like that, the rage came back. Not a fire. Not an explosion, but a slow, smoldering storm. So I did the only thing I could. I made a new plan, not just to get even, to annihilate him. Step 1. Create the illusion. He thought I'd moved on. That I was just some emotional immigrant who got his little victory and faded into HR compliance heaven, so I emailed him from a burner account. Subject line, brand strategy opportunity, $25,000 USD. I pretended to be Alexi, a PR strategist for a startup wellness brand called Nova Masculine. We were disrupting the men's health space with cold plunges, stoicism, and chia-based testosterone supplements. Total satire. Total bait. And Blake? Oh, Blake bit hard. He responded in 7 minutes. "Hi, Alexi. Love what you're doing. Let's connect ASAP. Masculinity is under attack, and I'd love to help take your brand to the next level." Barf. We arranged a Zoom call. I wore a mask. Literally. I used a voice changer and a fake background. I told him we wanted to launch a controversial campaign to go viral. Something dangerous. Something edgy. He smiled. Like the villain in a straight-to-DVD thriller. "I'm your guy," he said. "No one knows how to manufacture outrage better than I do." I told him we were planning an exclusive invite-only men's summit in Austin, Texas. We'd pay for his flight, hotel, everything. We just needed him to sign a few waivers. Basic stuff. I emailed him a contract full of clauses he didn't read, including a hidden camera release and a statement that said he voluntarily agreed to appear in promotional content, social media, and satirical documentation. Satirical. He didn't even blink. He signed it within the hour. Step 2. Build the stage. I flew to Austin a week early, rented a dusty Airbnb with a broken fence and the scent of bourbon-soaked sadness. I turned it into the Summit venue with folding chairs, some discount banners that said, "Real men, real chaos," and one fake intern named Brent, played by my cousin Luca, who was thrilled to be involved once I told him it involved yelling at a predator in English. We had cameras hidden in lamps, smoke detectors, the corners of framed quotes like, "Dominate, don't meditate." The night before the event, I couldn't sleep. Not from fear, from anticipation, because for the first time in years, I wasn't scared of Blake Vanderhorn. I was 2 steps ahead. Step 3. Unmask the fraud. Blake arrived wearing all black, like a washed-up magician trying to look important. He swaggered in with that same goddamn smirk, looking around like the king of a broken castle. "You must be Alexei," he said to me. I didn't flinch, just nodded, handed him a branded water bottle labeled Alpha Electrolytes. He drank it without question. I should have put vodka in it. We sat him down in front of a ring light, told him we were filming a summit preview to hype the event. "Let's start with something easy," I said through my voice modulator. "What does masculinity mean to you?" He leaned forward. "Masculinity is ownership. It's the right to lead, to conquer, to refuse the weak mindset of guilt and apology." Barf again. We let him go on for 20 minutes. He said things like, "Consent. Culture is just another leash for powerful men. The best employees are the ones who don't ask questions. Victims are usually just underachievers in disguise, all on tape, all in 4K. Then we pulled out the screenshots, the receipts, the audio from his office, Naomi's testimony. We slid them across the table. His face changed. First confusion, then denial, then fury. "You set me up," he growled. "No," I said. "You set yourself up. Years ago. We just hit record." He stood up, knocked the chair over, screamed something about lawyers and lawsuits and libel. "But remember that contract? The one he didn't read? He'd agreed to it all. We had his consent. On paper, on camera, in his own words." I looked him in the eye, my real voice now, and said, "Game over, Blake." Step 4. Publish and let rot. We uploaded the footage under the project name, Corporate Predator, The Blake Vanderhorn Files, posted it on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, sent it to journalists, sent it to his old board members, sent it to his podcast sponsors, his ghostwriting service, even his overpriced gym. It exploded. Not in a viral dance challenge way, in a what the hell did I just watch way. Clips of him saying, "Consent is a prison for the alpha male," were remixed with trap beats and autotune. A drag queen did a dramatic monologue of his quotes wearing a bald cap and a blazer. Someone made a Blake-themed dating sim where he gets rejected by every NPC. The internet did what the courts couldn't. It humiliated him into oblivion. Step 5. Breathe. I didn't sleep for 2 days after we posted it. Not because I was scared, because I was waiting. Waiting for the shoe to drop. For him to sue. To attack. To show up at my job with a smug grin and a better lawyer. But he didn't. He vanished. The last post on his account was a grainy video of him in a sauna, whispering about betrayal and how the Matrix always punishes those who tell the truth. That was 6 months ago. Now? No one returns his calls. No one invites him on panels. He's radioactive, toxic, dead on arrival. The kind of man who will spend the rest of his life Googling himself and flinching. And me? I'm okay. Not healed, not whole, but okay. Naomi and I started our own consultancy, one that actually respects its interns. We do ethics audits for startups and design accountability policies that don't get printed and ignored. We called it Ghostlight. Strategy's fitting, right? Because we haunt the predators now. We remind them that the people they stepped on, we remember, we organize, we fight back, and sometimes We win.